Good morning, Korea. I'm so sorry I could not be there today for the DePIN Accelerator Korea, but I'm so excited to be able to join you guys virtually and talk about Filecoin, the original DePIN prototype. Thank you, Alan, and everyone from the team for having me. I'm Clara Tao, founding officer at Filecoin Foundation, and I'm so excited to talk to everyone today about DePIN and decentralized storage. So before we get started, I wanted to talk about a major trend we've seen over the last few years. The reality is human and AI generated data is growing exponentially. More than 400 terabytes of data are created globally every single day. And in fact, this would be if every person on Earth were to take 100 photos every single day. That's roughly how much new data the world is generating daily. A report from the Europol Innovation Lab, in fact, suggests that as much as 90% of content online will be generated by AI in just next year, 2026. So you can see on the graph on the left just the exponential growth in the volume of data created and replicated over the last decade and more. The other challenge that has been happening with the internet beyond just growth of data is users realizing the fragility of today's internet. You can see on the left that the reality is around 3 to 4 companies own most of data today, whether that's on social media apps, whether these are on applications and businesses, whether these are on cloud storages. Data today is owned by a few major monopolies, and users don't quite have a choice. The other realization is today's internet is vastly centralized. And sometimes this leads to IT outages like what happened with CrowdStrike in 2025 when hundreds of thousands of businesses failed because of a single point of failure in services becoming centralized. You can also see some of the fallout from centralized storage. For example, in the case of Cambridge Analytica and Facebook, social media companies today monetize off of user data in order to upkeep their businesses. And as a consequence, users may have their data that they don't know they're giving to third parties access and harvested for money. And that's exactly what happened in the case of the Cambridge Analytica scandal. You can see in the article below, the world's most valuable resource is no longer oil, but actually data. And I can guarantee this is probably true for many of you guys who today rely on your smartphones, smart devices, computers for accessing key services, and you rarely print out information or keep it locally downloaded anymore. The fear that we all have is that AI is actively centralizing, similar to the way that most of our data is already centralized in the hands of major monopolies. A few tech giants control all of the world's AI models and infrastructure. And a lot of the major companies like OpenAI or Anthropic are actually directly funded by big tech giants. You can see this in the latest fundraise from OpenAI and also from Anthropic and other major AI companies that are building models today. The large monopolies of traditional tech companies have a lot of sway in what they can and can't do. Even on the article on the left, you can see investors aren't allowed to back its rivals. There's already a lot of passion to make sure that there isn't decentralization when it comes to access to capital. And the other reality is access to training data, compute, and deployment is so critical to making sure that we have accurate AI models. You can see here, this is just a graph to show that training today's AI models requires petabytes of private centralized data, supercomputer level hardware that are affordable only to giants, and also centralized servers where models might be controlled by single entities. They're also funded by the same players. I wrote a couple down here from Microsoft, from Google, funding Anthropic, DeepMind, and Amazon funding Anthropic and Hugging Face. You can also see on the graph on the left that there's a high correlation between an introduction of AI and total global data generation. So AI is very clearly driving even more generation, as we can see year by year. So how can we solve this, where we can solve the lack of monopolies owning all our data, the need for tons of data out there in this world that consumers and AI is consuming regardless, and also making sure that users can have control and have a choice in how their data is being used? Well, we believe that DePIN is a new way. So Filecoin is one of the earliest DePIN projects. The white paper was written in 2013, which makes it the earliest DePIN project out there. At the time the white paper was distributed, it was written by Juan Benet, who started the Filecoin white paper. And the idea was, what if we had a network of nodes all around the world that can create the world's largest decentralized storage network? So instead of relying on a centralized provider for your cloud storage needs, you can access a set of decentralized data centers all around the world. And there are other ways you can think about DePIN or decentralized physical infrastructure. You could provide little internet coverage with a small device. You could rent out extra space on your computer to store other people's data. That's a little bit of what Filecoin does at scale with data centers. Or you could share solar energy from your roof. And in return, you will get rewarded, often with digital tokens or real money, for providing that service. So DePIN is a really interesting way of really crowdfunding existing infrastructure and resources to allow for the lack of a single monopoly to have to control everything. And we also believe that DePIN networks like Filecoin has so many additional advantages. It has a fraction of the cost of what today's centralized providers might be able to provide. Today, centralized providers might have fixed pricing, which makes it a lot more expensive. It has the ability to give users full control and ownership of their data versus the ability of providers to access, analyze, or even restrict your data. And finally, it's censorship resistant. You can grow it organically as new nodes or new data centers join the network. And centralized storage is often limited in scalability because it's really dependent on the ability of a company to determine whether they want to invest in more infrastructure or not. You can see here, this is just how Filecoin works. Users pay storage providers all around the world to store their files. Storage providers commit publicly via Filecoin's blockchain to storing the file. The network constantly verifies that storage providers are storing files correctly. And then when users want their storage, they can pay the storage provider to retrieve their file back again. So this is an alternative to being able to store your data in a place that doesn't necessarily have to be a single point of failure or a single centralized storage entity that's typically owned by big tech. And how does Filecoin stack up in Web3? Well, storage is actually just a start. Today, Filecoin has the largest available capacity of decentralized storage, surpassing all other networks in scale and storage, with around 4 exabytes of total storage capacity. You can imagine this is around 16,100 times larger than competitors like Arweave. That is another decentralized storage network. So Filecoin just has a lot of capacity on the network that we spent the last decade growing. Filecoin is also considered the world's largest and earliest DePIN project. I said this earlier, with the white paper actually being released in 2014. Most NFTs are stored today using IPFS and Filecoin, which makes it the leading storage place for NFTs and other Web3 storage verticals. And Filecoin also has one of the most active and diverse ecosystems. Beyond decentralized storage, it has also grown to be a data layer for Web3, AI, DePIN, and compute. So there are so many actually benefits of decentralized storage in today's economy of AI. I talked about some of the challenges with major companies owning most of AI infrastructure today, but people also might lose trust in knowing where AI data is being pulled from. And decentralized storage actually allows you to have trust in proof of storage. Its provenance and authentication helps determine exactly where data sets were pulled and whether they have been changed or not, which is very important in an era where we're worried about disinformation, misinformation, or deep fakes. There is a scale and cost factor that makes it often a fraction of the cost of what you see in centralized storage, and has resilience, monopoly data ownership. So you don't feel like you are handcuffed into needing to use one single centralized data provider for the rest of your life. You have that ability to move and migrate. You can see here, this is just a graph of large data set clients that Filecoin has been working with since the last quarter of 2024. You can see the continued growth in data sets that are above 1,000 terabytes and also other categories. Filecoin not only stores data, but also helps empower other decentralized physical infrastructure networks, from decentralized compute to providing storage for video infrastructure like LivePeer, to offering ability to store data from sensors. WeatherXM is a company that has decentralized weather stations all around the world where users get paid for providing accurate weather data to their network. And then we also have L2s today that are using Filecoin as that storage layer, such as Fluence and also Basin. Filecoin is also the backbone for a new wave of DAI and compute companies. So we've actually announced over 7 to 10 different partnerships just the last year alone, where different companies and projects have been using Filecoin to help store AI data at all different levels, from AI agents to AI models, to be able to look at archival data and building smart AI agents with Theoric. The list goes on. And you can see here, this is just another way to look at ways of thinking about decentralized storage with Filecoin as that bottom layer, and all the other ways that other companies today operating in the decentralized and centralized AI economy can play into Filecoin. This year, we have a huge push to really help accelerate product market fit among all the 200 plus companies building applications on top of Filecoin today. And we're really looking at growing adoption to other sectors. One example of this is a healthcare company called Hippocrat that is redefining healthcare data storage in partnership with us. Hippocrat offers the ability for users to not only encrypt their data, but also store healthcare data in a way in which you can preserve it, make sure that it's not tampered with, and also healthcare companies can help verify that the data source is pulled from the right place. And this is especially important because there are a lot of siloed data flows, especially in the healthcare space, and also enormous amounts of data. With that, I wanted to leave all of you guys hungry for more. We want you to come and join us for the Filecoin Dev Summit that is happening actually virtually, beginning Monday to Tuesday next week. We've already had 3 days of exciting talks, and next Monday and Tuesday we'll continue the fun. We also have an in-person Filecoin Dev Summit version that's happening right before Consensus Toronto. So that's Filecoin Dev Summit 6 in Toronto, and that is happening from May 12th to May 13th. The sessions will be translated to accommodate different languages. So with that, thank you so much for having me. And I'm so sorry again, I could not be there in person, but I'm more than excited to answer questions and also continue the dialogue over Telegram or by email or by Twitter. Thank you so much.